The recycled air of the Boeing 737 cabin hummed with the familiar drone of pre-flight anticipation. For Brenda, a senior flight attendant with 12 years under her belt, it was a sound as natural as her own breathing. She moved through the aisle with practiced efficiency, her smile a carefully constructed veneer of warmth that had long since become second nature. Her eyes, however, missed nothing. They were sharp, analytical tools, cataloging passengers, assessing potential issues, and sorting the compliant from the problematic before the cabin doors were even sealed. She was good at her job. Not just good, excellent. She took pride in maintaining order at 35,000 feet, in being the calm, authoritative presence in the metal tube hurtling through the sky. But beneath the crisp uniform and the professionally pinned hair, a current of fierce conviction ran deep. The world, as Brenda saw it, was a battleground of ideas, and she had long ago chosen her side. Her social media feeds were a curated echo chamber of outrage, a daily affirmation that she was on the right side of history, fighting a righteous war against ignorance and moral decay. It was then that she saw him. He was in seat 12B, an aisle seat in Economy Plus. He was unremarkable in every way, middle-aged with salt and pepper hair, wearing a simple gray pullover and comfortable-looking jeans. He could have been an accountant, a high school teacher, anyone. But it was the object on his head that made Brenda's professional smile falter, replaced by a tightening in her jaw. It was a hat, a simple baseball-style cap in a bright, almost electric blue. Stitched across the front in clean, white, sans-serif letters was a single, four-letter word: vote. Instantly, Brenda's mind filled in the blanks. The color was unmistakable. That specific shade of blue was their color. The word itself was a dog whistle, a smug, self-satisfied command from the people who were, in her unwavering opinion, ruining the country. It wasn't a call for civic duty. It was a partisan banner, a silent, arrogant declaration of allegiance. She saw it as a deliberate act of provocation, a way of bringing the very conflict she despised into her cabin, her controlled environment. A hot surge of indignation coursed through her. She felt her pulse quicken. This wasn't just a hat. It was an affront. It was a symbol of everything she stood against, and he had dared to bring it onto her flight, to flaunt it in her face. For a moment she continued her duties, handing out pre-departure beverages, but her eyes kept flicking back to 12B. The man was quietly reading a book, oblivious to the storm brewing in the aisle. His calm demeanor only stoked her anger. It felt condescending. He thinks he can just sit there, she thought, her internal monologue flaring, bringing his politics into a shared space, making everyone else uncomfortable. Well, not on my flight. Not today. She felt a surge of empowerment. This was her domain. Corporate policy was her shield, and she knew how to wield its ambiguities like a weapon. There were vague clauses about creating a neutral and comfortable environment for all passengers. That was all she needed. This hat was making her uncomfortable, and as a representative of the airline, her comfort was synonymous with policy. Steeling herself, she straightened her uniform jacket and approached him. The practiced smile was back, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. "Sir," she began, her voice dripping with a saccharine politeness that barely concealed its sharp edge. "I'm going to have to ask you to remove your hat." The man looked up from his book, his expression one of mild confusion. He had kind, intelligent eyes. "I'm sorry?" "Your hat," Brenda repeated, gesturing toward it with a flick of her wrist. "It's against company policy to wear items with political messaging. It can create a divisive environment." Other passengers began to notice. A few heads turned. The low hum of the cabin was punctuated by this new, quiet drama. The man in 12B looked at his hat as if seeing it for the first time, then back at her. A faint, almost imperceptible frown line appeared between his brows. "My hat?" he asked, his voice even and calm. "It just says, vote. I wasn't aware that encouraging civic participation was a partisan issue." Brenda felt a flash of irritation at his composure. He was playing dumb, she was sure of it. "Sir, we both know what that hat represents. The color, the messaging, It's a clear political statement. I need you to put it in the overhead bin or in your personal bag for the duration of the flight." "With all due respect," the man replied, his voice remaining level, almost gentle. "I don't believe I'm violating any actual policy. Could you perhaps show me where it's written that a hat encouraging voting is prohibited?" His calm, logical questioning was like fuel on her fire. It was a challenge to her authority. Her voice grew louder, shedding its polite veneer and taking on a hard, lecturing tone. She was no longer just speaking to him. She was performing for the small audience of nearby passengers. "Sir, our responsibility is to ensure a comfortable and non-confrontational atmosphere for everyone on board. Your hat is making other people," she said, gesturing vaguely to the cabin around them, "uncomfortable. I am the authority on this aircraft, and I am telling you the hat needs to go." The man closed his book, placing his finger in it to mark his page. He looked directly into her eyes. The calmness was still there, but now it was underpinned by something else, something she couldn't quite place. It felt like a deep, heavy stillness, the kind that precedes a storm. "Ma'am," he said, his voice dropping slightly but losing none of its clarity. "I want to be very clear. I'm not looking for a confrontation, but I will not be removing my hat. It is not offensive, it contains no profanity, and it does not advocate for any specific candidate or party. It expresses a fundamental principle of our democracy." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "I would strongly advise you to reconsider this course of action. You are making a significant professional misjudgment." His warning, delivered with such quiet confidence, should have given her pause. It felt less like a threat and more like a statement of undeniable fact. But Brenda was too far down the path of self-righteousness to turn back. She heard his words as condescension, as a dare. "A misjudgment," she scoffed, her voice rising in pitch. "The only misjudgment here was you thinking you could bring your political propaganda onto my plane. This is your final warning. Remove the hat, or you will be removed from this flight." The man simply shook his head, a look of profound disappointment washing over his face. "Then you leave me no choice." "Fine," Brenda snapped, turning on her heel. "You've made your choice." She marched to the front of the cabin, her heart pounding with a mixture of anger and righteous triumph. She informed the lead flight attendant, Carol, that a passenger in 12B was being non-compliant and would need to be deplaned. Carol, a veteran of 30 years, shot a worried look down the aisle. "Brenda, are you sure? The doors are about to close. Is it really that serious?" "He's wearing a political hat and refusing to remove it. He's causing a disturbance," Brenda insisted, stretching the truth to fit her narrative. Reluctantly, Carol spoke into the intercom, requesting a gate agent and security to board the aircraft for a passenger removal. The finality of the act sent a fresh jolt of adrenaline through Brenda. She was doing it. She was taking a stand. She walked back to 12B, the gate agent following close behind her. "Sir, you were given an opportunity to comply. You now need to gather your belongings and come with us." The man in the blue hat sighed, a deep, weary sound. He slowly placed his book in his carry-on bag and stood up. As he did, his height was surprising. He was well over 6 feet, with a commanding presence he had not projected while seated. The entire cabin was now silent, all eyes fixed on the unfolding drama. As he stepped into the aisle, the captain emerged from the cockpit, alerted to the delay. He was a jovial man named Captain Evans, who had flown with Brenda dozens of times. He saw the scene and moved forward. "What's the hold-up here?" he asked, looking from Brenda to the calm man in the aisle. "This passenger refused to comply with crew instructions, Captain," Brenda said stiffly. "He's being removed." Captain Evans looked at the man, and for the first time he seemed to truly see him. The captain's folksy smile vanished. His face went pale, a mask of dawning horror. His eyes widened, and he seemed to shrink an inch. "Mr. Harrison?" the captain stammered, his voice barely a whisper. What are you doing back here?" Brenda stared, confused. The gate agent froze. The man, Mr. Harrison, gave the captain a tired, grim smile. "Hello, David. I was just trying to get home. Apparently, my hat is too divisive for one of your crew members." Brenda's world tilted on its axis. The righteous fire in her veins turned to ice water. Harrison? She knew that name. It was in every corporate newsletter, on every press release. Arthur Harrison, the unassuming book-reading man in the vote, Hat was the founder, majority shareholder, and chairman of the board of a portfolio of companies that included this one. He didn't just fly on the airline, he owned the airline. A silence so profound it felt like a physical weight fell over the cabin. Brenda could feel dozens of pairs of eyes on her, their curiosity now curdled into shock and pity. Her mouth went dry. The meticulously constructed reality of her righteous crusade shattered into a million pieces, revealing the ugly truth beneath. She had just publicly humiliated her own boss over a complete fabrication, driven by nothing more than her own political bigotry. Mr. Harrison turned his gaze from the captain to Brenda. His eyes were no longer kind. They were cold, analytical, and filled with a crushing finality. "Ma'am," he said, his voice now devoid of any warmth, "I gave you an opportunity. I warned you that you were making a mistake. Our company's actual policy, the one I wrote, celebrates diversity, tolerance, and respect. It encourages our employees to think critically, not to act as bullies based on their own narrow prejudices. You have failed on every conceivable level." He turned to the ashen-faced captain. "David, this person's employment with our airline is terminated, effective immediately. Please ensure she is escorted off my aircraft and that her credentials are revoked. Her behavior is a liability I will not tolerate." Brenda felt the floor drop out from under her. "No," she whispered, the sound pathetic in the silent cabin. "Please, I thought—" "You thought you were right," Mr. Harrison finished, his voice cutting through her stammering. "You were so certain in your convictions that you abandoned the most basic principles of your job: professionalism, courtesy, and common sense. You didn't see a customer. You saw a symbol, and you let your personal bias destroy your career." He then looked down at his simple blue hat. "For the record, I wear this to encourage everyone of every political stripe to participate in our democracy. That's all. It seems you're the only one who found that offensive." Without another word to her, he turned to the gate agent. "The situation is resolved. We are ready for departure." He nodded to the captain and walked back to his seat. 12B, the blue hat still firmly on his head. As the gate agent gently but firmly took her arm to lead her away, Brenda moved as if in a trance. She saw the faces of the passengers, the shock, the whispers. She had wanted to make an example of him. Instead, the universe had made an example of her. Her 12-year career, her pride, her self-righteous certainty, all of it evaporated in a humiliating instant, a permanent casualty in a war she had started and lost all by herself. The last thing she heard before the jet bridge door clicked shut behind her was the familiar mundane hum of the cabin, a world she was no longer a part of, preparing to move on without her.